Hello, everyone. My name is Shawn Robert Johnson, and thank you for watching this because this message is dedicated to victims and the families affected by crime, violence, trauma, and loss. Too often, people only focus on the incident itself, but not enough attention is given to what happens afterwards. The emotional damage, the fear, the grief, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, and the long road towards healing. Victimization changes lives. It changes how people think, how people trust, how people interact with others, and sometimes how people see the world. One painful moment can leave emotional wounds that last for years or forever. Families suffer too. Parents lose peace, children lose security, spouses lose emotional stability, entire households begin carrying invisible pain while trying to function like everything is normal when it's not. Many victims and families feel pressure to move on quickly, but healing is not that simple. Trauma does not operate on a schedule. Pain does not disappear overnight. Some people may still be carrying anger. Some may still be carrying fear. Some may still feel emotionally stuck in a moment that changed their life. I want you to understand something clearly. Your pain is real, your emotions are valid, and your healing matters. So, this keynote is not about minimizing pain. It's not about pretending harm did not happen. It's about recognizing suffering while also creating space for healing, restoration, strength, accountability, and hope. Because even after harm, healing is still possible. And I can speak this from experience because I know my situation. I said this from day one, and I will continue to say this. Even though by law it says I had a right to defend myself, somebody still lost their son in my situation. Someone still got hurt. And to me, I I will never be able to understand their pain, and I know that they will forever hold whatever feelings that they harbor towards me. And all I just ask, like I haven't asked numerous times, that they forgive me. And I apologize for bringing that harm into their life, right? And I know no matter how many times I apologize, no matter how many times they see me, elevate in a positive way, it will never, change the feeling that they feel of the hurt of losing someone. So I specifically and specially wanted to do this for, victims and the families of victims. But I want you to know that even though you are hurting and it's on your own time, healing is still possible. One thing we must understand about trauma is that victims often carry pain long after everyone else stops talking about the event. Trauma changes people emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Some people develop anxiety and constantly feel unsafe. Some struggle with depression, panic attacks, emotional numbness, nightmares, or trust issues. Some begin isolating themselves because they no longer feel emotionally secure around others. And many victims blame themselves for things that were never their fault. People may replay moments over and over in their minds, wondering what they could have done differently. That emotional cycle can be exhausting. Victims also carry invisible burdens that others may never fully understand. Some struggle returning to normal routines. Some fear crowded places. Some become emotionally distant from people they love. Some lose confidence in themselves or in humanity altogether. Pain can reshape someone's identity if healing never begins. And what makes it harder is that many victims suffer silently because they fear being misunderstood, ignored, or judged. Some people hear statements like, "You should be over it by now. At least you survived. Try not to think about it anymore." But trauma does not disappear simply because time passes. Real healing begins when victims are allowed to acknowledge their pain honestly without shame. People deserve safe spaces to talk about what they experience. They deserve compassion instead of judgment. They deserve support instead of silence. And most importantly, victims deserve to know what happened to them or their family is not meant to permanently to destroy their worth or their identity. And it's not just about the victim itself, like I said, it's about the families of victims because it all applies to them of what they gone through. They carry pain and they carry these emotions that affect them on a daily basis. And nobody can truly understand what they are going through. So healing after harm is not a straight line. Some days people feel strong, other days grief returns unexpectedly. Healing is often emotional, complicated, and deeply personal. One of the biggest misconceptions about healing is that healing means forgetting, but it don't. But healing does not mean pretending pain never existed. Healing means learning how to continue living without allowing trauma to completely control your future. Grief can show up in many forms. People grieve lost loved ones. People grieve lost safety. People grieve lost trust, lost innocence, lost relationships, and even lost versions of themselves. And many families experience emotional exhaustion trying to stay strong for everyone else while secretly struggling. Healing requires patience. Sometimes healing begins through counseling, sometimes through faith, sometimes through support groups, communities, family conversations, journaling, mentorship, or even simply being heard. But healing also requires honesty. People cannot heal from pain they constantly suppress. Ignoring trauma may temporarily hide emotions, but buried pain eventually resurfaces through anger, isolation, fear, addiction, depression, or emotional breakdowns. Real healing happens when people begin confronting pain in healthy ways instead of pretending they are okay when they are not okay. And healing does not make people weak. In fact, choosing healing after being hurt is one of the strongest decisions a person can make. It's one of the strongest decisions that a person can make. Crime and violence rarely affect only one person. Pain spread through families, through neighborhoods, schools, friendships, and entire communities. Children are affected when parents suffer emotionally. Families are affected when fear enters the household. Communities are affected when trauma becomes normalized. One act of violence can create emotional consequences for generations. Some children grow up surrounded by grief, anger, instability, or emotional silence because unresolved trauma was never addressed within the family. Communities carrying repeated trauma often experience distrust, fear, hopelessness, and emotional disconnection. And this is why healing matters not only for individuals, but for society as a whole. When pain remains undressed, it can continue reproducing itself through broken relationships, emotional instability, violence, addiction, and unhealthy coping behaviors, but healing can create positive ripple effects too. When people receive support, communities become stronger. When victims are heard, people begin rebuilding trust. When families heal emotionally, children grow up with healthier emotional foundations. Healing creates restoration beyond the individual, and that is why compassion, mental health, resources, community support, counseling, mentorship, and safe conversations are so important because helping one person heal can positively impact entire generations afterwards. And when we don't, that ripple effect just continues just to go on in generations. So we have to shift it from a negative standpoint and turn it into something positive with that ripple effect. We bring healing to the table so everybody involved and connected to any trauma or violent situation that it could be healing. It is not about it happening overnight, but it's about starting so we can heal as communities, which can change so many things. All right, so even in darkness, people can still find purpose, healing, strength, and support. One of the most powerful things about human beings is our ability to survive painful seasons and still continue moving forward. Pain changes people, but pain does not have to permanently destroy people. Some individuals who once felt broken eventually become voices of encouragement for others. Some families who survive tragedy become advocates for healing, awareness, and support. Strength through adversity does not mean pretending pain don't exist within your family. True strength means facing pain honestly while refusing to allow pain to completely define your life forever. There are people who survive things they never thought they would emotionally recover from, and yet you are still here. That matters. Your healing matters. Your story matters. Adversity often teaches people compassion, resilience, emotional depth, gratitude, and empathy for others who are suffering. And while nobody would choose trauma, many people eventually discover strength they never knew they possessed because they survived difficult seasons. There is still purpose after pain. There is still life after trauma. There is still hope after heartbreak. And real healing requires honesty. I say this a lot, and accountability, right? Acknowledging victims' pain is essential. Harm must never be minimized, ignored, or excused. Accountability matters because healing cannot fully exist without truth. But compassion also matters because bitterness and hatred can slowly destroy people emotionally from within. Compassion does not mean forgetting harm. Compassion does not erase consequences. Compassion means refusing to allow pain to turn us into emotionally hardened people incapable of healing or humanity. Sometimes accountability includes difficult conversations, responsibility, counseling, restitution, personal growth, and genuine efforts toward growth. And while not every situation leads to reconciliation, every person still deserves dignity, emotional support, and opportunities for healing. Society often struggles balancing accountability with humanity, but both are necessary. Victims deserve justice, support, and healing. Communities deserve safety, and people capable of growth should still be encouraged towards transformation and responsibility. Real healing happens when honesty and compassion exist together instead of competing against one another. And I want every victim and every family affected by harm to remember this. Your pain is real, your healing matters, and your life still holds purpose behind the trauma. Do not allow trauma to convince you your future is hopeless. Healing may take time. Some wounds heal slowly, some may never heal. Some scars remain emotionally sensitive for years, some forever. But progress is still possible, right? You are not weak for struggling. You are not broken because you hurt. That's just you being human. And even after devastating moments, people can still rebuild their lives, rediscover peace, reconnect with purpose, and experience healing again. Continue seeking support, continue speaking honestly, continue allowing yourself grace during difficult seasons, and most importantly, never believe your story ends with your pain. There's still life ahead of you. There is still hope ahead of you. There is still everything that you have ahead of you. Whether you are a victim, you still can accomplish something purposeful in life. And if you are a victim's family, I know it's hurt. I know it hurt, but you can heal. And forgiveness does not happen overnight. And as I said, with my own situation, it's about, you know, it doesn't matter how many times I can apologize. I know I hurt someone, even though the situation happened how it happened. And by law, I was right. It still hurt somebody. So I just want, us to be able to find a balance in life. Whereas when we are on one side of things and we are on the other side of things, that we can heal. Because when we don't, there's so many other people that get affected years down the line, behind something that nobody ever held over. You can find you can follow me on all of my social medias, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and I appreciate you for listening. And let's continue saving souls one at a time.